Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Real Estate Mogul MD. My name is Bob Bosick. I'm a retired executive, and I have the privilege of speaking with medical professionals, high-income earners, and investors. We're here today to share the real-world journeys along with the to-dos and, more importantly, the not-to-dos. And I'm excited today. I have Scott Freeman with us today in Orange County, California. Not often that I get a neighbor to speak to, but we are neighbors down here in the Orange County, Southern California area, and it's a real pleasure to have you join us today, Scott. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic, Bob. How are you?
I'm good. I'm just trying to survive the rain like you. It's been quite a bit that we've been experiencing. So
we actually got snow a week ago.
Yeah, yes, I know. We have blizzards in LA County and whatnot. It's been a bizarre but needed amount of water and snow that we've been needing here in Southern California.
Very much so.
So, Scott, talk to me about sort of your journey. And I like to talk at the beginning of where it all began and kind of go through the arc of your career to this point. So how old were you, and what helped you decide or made you decide that you wanted to go to chiropractic school?
Wow. That actually probably started when I was a kid. Because I grew up not in a chiropractic family, but in a medical family. My dad was an oral surgeon, and my stepfather was an OBGYN. And I actually, when I got to high school, I actually took German in high school, not Spanish, which would be practical in Southern California, or right. French, which was sexy, but German, which was useless here. Because my dad told me that if I ever thought I might become a doctor, that there were a lot of medical words that had German roots. I don't know if I ever encountered that later. I grew up in a very, very Western medical family, and we used to visit my father's patients. We would go to the hospital and visit them on the way to dinner. Every Christmas, we would go see the newborn Christmas babies with my stepfather. So I kind of always had a health and medical bias, but I knew that I would never be a surgeon. Whenever my dad watched surgical videos, I would suddenly have homework and have to run upstairs and hide.
Yeah, you're the same as me. I had a dad who was a doctor as well, and I would go to the hospital occasionally with him. And I passed out once. As a young teenager, 12 or 13. Somehow I would so relate and over-relate in my brain to the pain that I thought was being inflicted as a knife or a scalpel goes through stitches, whatever. Yeah. And it really bothered me. I couldn't overcome that. So I departed also. So with that Western background, how did you get exposed to chiropractic?
It's kind of interesting. I think I've never thought this until right now. I think the thing that stood out from both my father and my stepfather, regardless of their particular application, the thing that always stood out was their caring. These are very, very caring professions, and that always had my heart, and I feel like I was always headed in that direction because of that. With chiropractic, I was 20 years old, and I had gotten introduced to Tony Robbins very, very early in his career and in my life. And it was one of my friends from a Tony Robbins seminar this was the summer of 1991. We came back from programs, and he's like, "Scott, you have to go see this chiropractor. Everybody's going," like all of our Tony Robbins friends. And I was like, "Really? No." I was dead set against it. I don't know if I had like preconceived judgment of chiropractic, because that was certainly something that was prevalent. Or if I probably had seen too many Chuck Norris or Steven Seagal movies where they snap the neck and somebody dies. But I was really dead set against it, and it took him months and months and months to get me to go. And I finally went because the doctor was offering free dinner at his class, and I was a broke college student. So that got me in the door. But what I saw when I went changed my life. Completely changed my life. And actually with some wisdom, hopefully some wisdom, looking back on my life, I think the reason I was so resistant at the time to chiropractic was because that was my destiny, and I was really fighting it, wow. even that young. So I just started as a patient, but I was absolutely blown away that you could help with everything. You could help with physical aches and pains and concerns and headaches and fatigue and stress and all these things, but also emotional things through the nervous system and relationship things and spiritual things. And I this was inconceivable to me. It completely shattered my worldview.
Yeah, it's interesting that, I grew up with, as I've shared with you, with a father who was a physician, and this was back in the 70s. And so Western medicine did not really embrace chiropractic medicine or Eastern medicine. But he was really ahead of his time. I remember being in a very severe car accident where, I was unconscious and they had to, use metal things to separate the car and get me out. I was probably 16.
Wow.
And he was way ahead of his time. He went and took me to a physical therapist as part of, my treatment. But very soon thereafter, he dragged me down consistently a couple times a week to the chiropractor, this was in an acupuncturist. This was completely different than anything that, you heard traditional Western medicine discussed. But it's really been interesting over the years how Western medicine is starting to take a more holistic view and embrace other ideas that they were kind of wed against when I was growing up. And it's nice to see. Do you still experience any of that going on, or is it just transition completely?
No. There's. Well, I see both. It is funny. I'll just say this real quick. I didn't know this till I got to chiropractic school, but there has always been some form of chiropractic or something having to do with the spine, literally dating back to the beginning of history, thousands and thousands and thousands of years. There's always been some sort of in Egyptian medicine, they used to call it bone setting.
Oh, okay.
If you look back into traditional Indian or Ayurvedic medicine, everything centers around the central column. Every ancient tradition has always had a form of something. What's the word that I'm looking for? Something to do with the regulation of the nervous system.
Okay.
As a primary function. Has always been all throughout time. 100% I've experienced bias. I mean, even in pop culture, you look at shows like 2.5 Men, where like the geeky, dorky younger brother who was always mocked and made fun of was a chiropractor. Or
I've not noticed those things.
And
I understand.
We joke about it, but
yes.
That's a really severe cultural bias where, sorry, someone's calling in here, where at the same time you see, show after show after show after show, whether it's ER or Grey's Anatomy or whatever, dedicated to valid
lives.
Western medicine. And I mean, it's funny because I honestly, I'm not trying to be biased to my profession. I mean, even if I was just a patient, to finish answering your previous question, I was just a patient for years and years and years and years and years. And then I finally I quit college and I had to pick a career. And I was like, I better do something at this point. And chiropractic always fascinated me so much that was the direction. And I was still loving and caring about people. So that was the direction I decided to go.
Where did you go? Where was the school you went to?
In the San Francisco Bay Area, Life Chiropractic College West. I had to finish all my prerequisites. I had to finish a ton of schooling on all the basic sciences. And then I went up there for school. Every chiropractic school, if you look at the actual hours, we have the same. Actually, there's usually more medical training in a regular chiropractic school than there is in a typical Western medical school. And then you have all the adjustive technique on top of it. And Lord knows how many weekends spent on the road traveling and training.
Right. How did the doctors in your family embrace this idea of you going to chiropractic school?
They were fine. I was actually surprised, but they actually loved it. I think at that point in my life, since I had quit college previously, I think they were happy that I was choosing something and doing something. But no, it's always been great, and I'll tell you the truth. My family, sometimes they come to see me, they go to see my colleagues. They've actually been surprisingly open. My mom, wow, she almost died over the summer. Actually, my mom went into the hospital, and I was the one who actually drove to. My sister called me up frantic. She's like, Scott, something's wrong with mom. She's like, she doesn't know how the car works. She's like slurring her speech. You know, her
Having a mini stroke.
Well, that was immediately my thought.
Yeah.
And I went racing down the freeway to Mission Viejo, you know, not knowing what I was going to find, obviously. And I had to be the role of the doctor, not just the freaked out son.
Yeah, you had to diagnose quick.
I'm the one who did the neuro exam on my mom. I'm the one who's checking the pupils in her eyes and the deviation of her tongue. And I mean, thank God that I had all that skill and training. Yeah. And I made she was okay, but something was still not right. And I made the decision to take her to the hospital.
Yeah. Good.
And thank God that as a doctor, right, as a medical professional, and thank God that I did, that could have saved her life. And so we did all the emergency stuff that needed to be done in the hospital. But then literally the first place that we took her, well, actually I had consult with numerous of my colleagues while we were in the hospital. And the first place that we took her when she got out was straight to three of my colleagues.
Wow.
Because we had to check her nervous system. We had to check her neurology, make sure that her brain function was on point, make sure that the neurological connection between the brain and her heart were functioning well, making sure that her spine was all in immaculate health, because the neurology, that it ended up being a heart condition, not a stroke. But we had to make sure that the neurology that is coming from the brain to the spine to the heart, right? It's like wiring in the house. It's just all connected. And if there's corruption or any sort of interference in the wiring of the house, you lose electricity. Same thing in the body. There's actually a study done in 1921. It was an MD who thought that all the claims about chiropractic were bogus, right? This is kind of a common cultural thing. Mm-hmm. But he decided to put it to the test. And he did almost 100 autopsies, over 220, bless you. No, bless you. Over 220 diseased organs that he looked at. Bless you again. And so almost 100 autopsies, 220 diseased organs, and there was a 96% correlation. Whatever the person died from, whether it was heart disease, liver cancer, respiratory ailment, whatever it was, there was 96% correlation between the diseased organ and a damaged spine.
Yeah.
Like wherever there was a damaged portion of the spine, those nerves that went to that organ, that's what was damaged. So, you could say there's 96% correlation between the health of your spine and illness and disease of the body. So it's a very big
correlation for me to want to have something done and checked on.
It's the primary system. When a baby's born, the nervous system is the first system that's developed. It takes over coordination of everything. I think chiropractic is looked at as this weird woo-woo, holistic, all natural kind of thing. It's straight up. It's
interesting that you're saying that, because that's what I was saying, is that in the 70s, there was kind of that viewpoint from my exposure to traditional medicine. But in my particular family, there wasn't that attitude. Yeah. And it seems that more people than not have adjusted to having a similar attitude and accepting it as very normal and very much a part of their healthcare practice. So that's good.
I think it's gone in both directions. Sorry, somebody's still calling. I think it's gone in both directions. I think absolutely 100%. There's so much more cultural acceptance. And I mean, I see chiropractic as primary care medicine. It is in my house. It is in my family. The chiropractor is the first place to go to. There's always a place for surgery, for medicine, for PT, for there always is. One of my chiropractors actually was dying from hepatitis C, and and it was $100,000 drug. It was $100,000 pill. Yeah, they went through years and years and years to get that approved by the insurance companies. It was literally one pill that saved his life. Thank God. I almost died from pneumonia years ago. The first place I went to was my chiropractor, and but I was so far gone already. I mean, I was about to die, that he sent me to the hospital, and thank God. So there's always the place for. I don't personally have the polarity or the judgment between different healthcare systems. I see it more like a toolbox, and you want to use the appropriate tool for the job. And to me, most of the time, 95% of the time, I'm going to be going to the natural healthcare and go towards chiropractic as a primary care, because my goal is not, honestly, my goal is not really to get rid of somebody's symptoms. That's an easy thing to do. My objective is to help a person heal and have a healthy life.
So when should people choose chiropractic? I'm hearing you say almost preventative, just to make sure that there's alignment and flow and that everything is as it should be without disruption. But are there, where do you see chiropractic fitting in there? And when should they choose to go?
Yesterday. Today now.
Today, yesterday, tomorrow.
I've taken care of everywhere from literally newborn babies to one of my patients now is, how old is she? Well, actually, my oldest is, I think, 78.
Wow.
And there's a woman recently, 69 years old, who self-diagnosed as asthmatic. She didn't just say she has asthma, but she identifies as being an asthmatic. And for her, this is second generation. Her father was the same. So clearly there's some sort of pattern, perhaps a neurological pattern, but probably more likely social, in the family, cultural patterns, whether that was dietary habits or how they handled their emotions or whatever, that's repeated.
Yeah.
Second visit, so she wears an oxygen meter. Wow. And that should be, she can't even go up a couple steps without losing her breath. I mean, this has devastated her life. She's the O2 meter should be between 96 and 100. For her, it's usually in the low 90s, which is not good. Sometimes dipping into the high 80s. Second visit to my office, she gets off the table. Now, I didn't even know she wore this thing at that time. It was something that she'd failed to mention to me. She gets off the table, puts her O2 meter back on, and she's at 100.
Wow.
And she has stayed well above 90 the entire time we've been together. And it's changed her life. So very, very safe. Again, I've taken care of newborns. I had a newborn who came to me. Well, she didn't come to me. Her parents brought her to me. Yeah. The doctors had botched the delivery, and perfectly healthy baby got caught in the birth canal. And instead of having some sensitivity and savvy to help bring her out, they grabbed her neck and twisted and torqued. And they tore nerves from C4 down to T3. So all along the left side, it was one of the scariest things I'd ever saw. Her face and her arm were paralyzed. So her face was drooping off like a pancake, and her arm it was really sick. Her arm looked like a dead fish at her side.
Oh, that's awful.
It was. And I didn't think, I'm like, what can I do? But the surgeons said, look, we'll give her 3 months. And if she doesn't heal on her own, we'll go in and do surgery. But we don't know what we'll find. It's 50-50. They had no, they're trying to cover their butt at that point.
Sure.
Within about 10 months, we had, depending on the day, anywhere between probably about 88 or 92% function. Her face, you could hardly even tell. Her arm, it was so cute. She'd lift her mom's purse. She'd crawl up the mirror in my office. And her father I was living in Singapore at that time. Her father was a very, very high-level banking. I think he was the VP of their bank. Lots of resources and connections.
Sure.
Flew her from Singapore to, I think it was Sydney or Melbourne. Melbourne. That's a 10-hour flight.
Yeah, that's a
very long flight with a young kid, just to see one particular surgeon. And the surgeon canceled the surgery recommendation. he said, whatever you've been doing, keep doing it because
keep doing it. It's working.
Yeah. So I see, I mean, it's not even my opinion. It's nature's opinion. Like I mentioned before, the nervous system is the first system that develops. It's at day 18, 17 or 18 in utero, once the baby's conceived, the nervous system starts to develop.
Right.
And so that is nature's priority. And actually the brain and the spinal cord, they're the only organs that are protected fully in bone. Not the heart, not the lungs, not nothing. So there's some sort of priority to this system that's very, very evident biologically.
Yes.
And that system comes in first because it starts to take over the job of governing and regulating everything.
Right.
Whether it's stress levels or blood chemistry or digestion or whatever. So that's the whole point of chiropractic, is that primary system, you could say the system of governance of the body, it just has to be in fully functioning working order,
right,
so that it can do the job of organizing and regulating everything else. That's it. I mean, that's all that there is. So I think that Western medicine, and to be really honest, even most what we call natural or holistic medicines in these days, the general philosophy usually is just get rid of the symptom by any means necessary, and whether that's by drugs.
That's the measurement by which you determine success or failure, right?
It is, and it's a really, and it doesn't matter if it's Eastern or Western, right? It doesn't matter if it's drugs and needles or herbs and surgery. The governing philosophy of healthcare is generally get rid of this. There's actually, we call it, what I would teach in a health class, but I'll do it in 30 seconds now, is we say that there's 4 levels of health. There's the level of symptoms, the level of no symptoms, the level of health, wellness, and vitality, and then the level of community and contribution. And symptoms we're all familiar with, but the dangerous level is the level of no symptoms.
Yes.
Because we tend to think that if there's no symptoms, we're healthy, but that's obviously false.
Right.
50% of heart attacks, the first symptom is the heart attack. Cancer, we don't know until it's 3rd or 4th stage, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So we need ways to be able to accurately measure and assess what's going on in a person's system, and then not to get rid of the symptom. That's the byproduct of disease. We need ways to measure. My job is to take a person from where they're at to an optimized level of health, and then you see the byproduct of health as opposed to the byproduct of disease. And a top level, we put on the top of that, we say that the highest level of health is culture and community, because with enough health, it's in any field, whether it's physical health, emotional health, finance. Whenever there's an abundance of richness, it spills over and it has impact on the people around us. And that's really more than anything why I do this.
I agree with you 100%. I would use less, I would use more words and not be able to say it as efficiently as you, but I absolutely believe in what you're saying. What does, you practice a newer cutting edge, process. Tell us about that for a minute.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And it's actually been around since the 80s, but it's still considered quite advanced. It's called network. There's a number of things that I do, but the primary thing that I focus on and specialize is called network spinal. And it is just brilliant. It's first off non-invasive, very light, very gentle, which makes it very safe. A lot of people get scared of
yes,
I was.
Yes,
I was too. Yeah. They get scared of the manual adjustment, and to be very honest, I don't think that forceful manual adjustment is always necessary.
Okay.
I think a lot of times, again, this is not philosophy; it's biology. If we look at how the body has guarded and defended itself, and is holding a part of the body sort of tight and rigid, do I really want to be going and slamming and pounding through a natural defense? To me, that seems like a violation.
Right.
It is appropriate sometimes, but again, different tools for different jobs.
Right.
Network spinal. It's very light. It's very gentle. It is completely non-invasive, and the priority here is, how would I say this? The priority is upon helping the nervous system to be healthy and to regulate all the other functions of the body. The biggest thing is that I don't want to just get rid of symptoms and send somebody back to the life that messed them up in the first place.
Right. Yeah, you want to understand how they got themselves in that predicament in the first place, and then, how do we make some lifestyle changes? And that's, again, a holistic view, right? It's about emotional, it's about perspective.
Well, I almost died of pneumonia. I mentioned briefly, this was back in 1998. And the first thing, so I'm good friends with my mentor and my teacher who taught me network spinal. Actually, I'm good friends with a lot of the people who've created chiropractic systems. And the first time that I went back to see Dr. Epstein after I didn't die from pneumonia, I get on the table and he says to me, he's like, Scott, he's like, did you end a relationship, or did anybody that you're close with pass away recently? And I'm sitting there, I'm like, it's my lungs, dude. What are you talking about? And he said to me, he's like, Scott, in Chinese medicine, grief is associated with the lungs. I thought he was crazy. I really did. I'm like, maybe I shouldn't be studying this stuff anymore. This is pretty weird. But when I looked at it, it was very true. There were biological factors in that I had just moved from dry Southern California to wet San Francisco, and it was one of the wettest winters on record. So that was a part of it. And probably 2/3 of my friends stopped being friends with me when I went to chiropractic school. It was just, different life trajectory. I was moving toward. Oh, Bob, you know what? I can't hear you. I don't know if
you were isolated a little bit,
very isolated. I think it was this was a calling. This was a destiny that I was moving towards, and there was an energy around it. And some people, we had a congruent journey to keep going together, and a lot of people fell to the wayside.
Right.
But I didn't see it that way back then. I was just sad, and I missed my friends, and I felt rejected, and
it was like a loss. It
absolutely was a loss. Yeah, I still miss a lot of those.
How long have you been in practice now?
Wow. 23 years, I think. Yeah,
wow.
Is that right?
All in Southern California?
Wait, am I doing the math right? I graduated in 2004. So 19 years. 19 years. 19. I graduated in 2004, but I really feel like all the way back to 1991 when I got introduced to chiropractic, that I feel like that's when it really started.
Sure.
Because you learn as a patient, if I can't love people, if I can't care about people and relate to them personally, I have no business touching them or putting my hands on them. So
yeah, you've got to come from the right place, and for you that would how can people get in contact with you in Orange County and get in touch, maybe arrange a free consult?
That's a great question.
To see you.
We always do the initial consultation. We always do complimentary, just to see what's going on with your body, with your life. What are some of your health goals? What are some of your lifestyle habits and objectives? That's always complimentary. They can call the office at 949-516-5559. Email at scottfreeman@gmail, DRSCOTTFREEMAN@gmail.com.
Yep. And
the website is being completed right now, and it will be The Vibe OC.
All right.
THEVIBEOC.com. I had actually retired from chiropractic a while ago, and I'm launching again because, quite honestly, because the world's a mess.
Yes,
and
it is.
We need a center of health and a center of sanity here in Orange County. We need a place that sets a new bar and has a higher standard. And so
what city can they find you?
Costa Mesa.
In Costa Mesa. Okay, so we are really neighbors.
It is.
Yeah, that's so Scott, it has been Terrific talking with you. I was really looking forward to this discussion for all of the historical reasons I explained to you in my own life. And it is a pleasure to have spent some time with you.
Very much, Bob.
More people that come from a place of wanting to give and to help and really mean it. And so it's just been a pleasure talking with you, and I appreciate it, and I'm sure the listeners will get a lot out of it. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks a ton, Bob. I've really enjoyed it.